Alright guys, here we are. 2021 Fire Emblem Heroes, we're out of Lords, and our new legendaries are literally chickens with wings. Okay.
Let the lesson begin.
What's up guys, Akariss here, bringing you another Fire Emblem Heroes video. Today's video is legendary banner impressions on Faye, our newest legendary hero. I honestly didn't see this one coming. However, I guess if you understand the relevancy of Faye, then it makes sense. So it's not too outlandish. Honestly, when it comes to Fire Emblem 6, there's probably not that many candidates other than Roy and Lena that should be legendary heroes. So Faye makes sense. I'm not upset. It's just I didn't really see it coming, considering there's just so many others like Vita or Xander something or Corrin that literally make more sense, like the other Corrin, female Corrin, male Corrin. So yeah, it's just a bit of a surprise. Feels like an Uller moment, but I'm not upset. I'm okay with Faye. She's cool. So yeah, we're gonna look at the banner, the skills. I can give you my first impressions on Faye, and of course there will be a should you pull video, which will come later, either later, couple hours, or the next day, once I have the stats spread, because I think stats will really determine the viability of Faye, so I probably want to wait for this one. I'm not going to speculate it. It might be similar, but I feel like I'll wait for this one, give you guys the most accurate analysis here, and to review Legendary Heroes as well in Earth Season, because, well, actually, that might have to wait until Tiki, but we'll see. Either way, look forward to the Should You Pull video after. You guys can vote in the community poll on YouTube or check out my Patreon, where you can also give your hands-on reasoning in the Discord server once you have access. Alright guys, smash the like button, sub if you haven't already. Let's jump into this thing and see where Faye lands. So, new legendary hero, Faye, the childlike dragon. From Binding Blade, aka Roy's game. Alright, so Faye is an Earth Season, pair up, blue infantry dragon. Yeah, there's already a blue armor dragon in this season who's about to get buffed and has effective against dragons. And we have Julia, who is also very bluish, powerful, and effective against dragons. So already from a first impression, Faye is going to have a fun time in this season, so to speak. And of course there's Claude, who's currently dominating that space. Where will she land? Well, guess we'll find out from the skills, right? Okay, so we have a couple new skills here. The one that's inheritable is Distant Stance. This shouldn't be too much of a shock because we did have Close Reversal, so Distant Stance is basically the equivalent of that for Distant Counter, and it just gives you a flat 5 res with Distant Counter on it. It's okay. It's definitely an upgrade over Distant Counter, but it's not going... I don't feel like you need it to succeed. It's not going to always come down to that. It's nice to have, but I wouldn't go out of your way to summon for something like that. It comes with Dragon's Iron Defense Res Menace, which I both think are pretty good here, make complete sense. The Menace, of course, buffs up her bulk even further and lowers the bulk of foes, where if they're ranged, then she'll do adaptive damage, and if they're melee, then she lowers res and hits that stat. So generally speaking, it's nice. Doesn't have a preference B skill, but she may very likely just reach 190 stats just because she's an infantry of new gen, and she's likely a trainee because it's Faye, and Faye's always basically been a trainee. Comes with Dragon's Ire, so Dragon's Ire is one of the better Dragon B skills. I do think like Dragon Wall is better, but it depends. It's not too bad. She could also run null follow-up and doesn't necessarily need Dragon's Ire, so that could also just straight up be better. But this one does have the auto follow-up, which can definitely decide some matchups. Keep in mind, guys, that both Alm and Claude run null follow-up literally in their base kits, so Dragon's Ire and her weapon in a moment do lose a lot of relevancy when compared to other Earth legendaries. So that's just something to think about. It's also strictly an enemy phase skill, so that makes her a little bit less relevant when she's just being baited out. Feels a lot like Legendary Seliph already. So her weapon gives you flat 3 attack and is clearly more enemy phase based, as it asks for if foe initiates combat or if foe is 75% HP. She just basically debuffs the foe by -5 stats, which is pretty good. I prefer that over like a self buff because that generally is better. But then she has that foe cannot make a follow-up attack condition, which is pretty good. But you gotta consider again that null follow-up is pretty rampant on many characters nowadays. Like, you're gonna have stuff like Byleth running around with it. You're gonna have null follow-up on literally Claude and Alm. Or you're just gonna have scenarios where they just outspeed Faye. May happen. We need to see the stat spread. But let's say that Dazzling Breath versus Legendary Tiki, and Tiki is using like Slick Fighter and you bait out Faye, well, it's going to become a speed check. Or that Tiki uses Bold Fighter, same idea. It's going to come down to like a speed check. So it could very well happen that Faye is pretty fast, but we don't have anything in this kit that would imply that. So we'll see. She was technically pretty fast in her like base version, so again, could happen. Reserve judgment on that, whether that's really good or not after. She could just straight up run null follow-up too, if she is fast, and I think that would be better. But anyways, second effect is a guard effect, which is pretty nice actually, if you ask me. As long as she's within range of an ally, I feel like that condition wasn't necessarily needed, but having a guard effect is pretty nice, along with Distant Stance and the rest of her kit. So there's definitely some synergy here. The thing that makes Legendary Faye though is going to be basically this special, which is a super miracle. We're just going to call it like super miracle. Essentially, this just charges at turn 1, doesn't require any pulsing or anything. She just straight up has miracle when the game starts. I do think, however, that is going to be weak to stuff like Pulse Tie and Pulse Smoke and other sort of effects which will lower that cooldown. But generally speaking, it starts off ready, and then as soon as she dies once per map, so unlike Miracle where you can get it proccing multiple times, it's just once per map. Once it triggers, it goes up to full health. And honestly, that doesn't seem too bad. You could always sub it out for like Ether or Blue Flame. It's not, I doubt this is gonna like change, like score more than those, but it's not terrible from just first impression. When you have a pre-charged Miracle type of special, that does let you play more risky, and I guess that's okay. However, if it does work like Miracle, and this condition once per map does imply that Faye gets like doubled pretty easily, if she ends up actually being slow and gets doubled, then you can probably just literally double her through like 2 Miracle, 2 kills in 1 combat. So we don't know if that's the case yet. I suspect it probably is. If you just like kill her twice in combat, then that may very well just be a pretty bad special for her. So being speed is gonna, like, being speedy is something that I think this Faye will need to be relevant. If she's slow, I don't think she'll be as good. So we'll see how that ends up being. And mind you, getting killed twice in Earth Season, considering stuff like Tiki and Julia existing, can happen. So again, stats are really going to determine how I feel about Faye here, which is why I'm going to wait until I actually see them. There's not really much confirmation how that is. We do see her HP stat being 40, which is okay, I guess. She doesn't have damage reduction to fully take advantage of that, but for the most part, her being speedy is going to be important. So you can see here she does proc off her special and heal up fully, post-combat of course, and that's awesome. I love the animation where she just jumps up and just does her thing, and she's like a golden dragon, kind of like Tiki. Actually, let's check if there was a stat spread there. Gotta go back a little bit. If there was, it was like a frame of that stat spread. So I'm pretty doubtful that this is the case. But yeah. Unfortunately, it seems like we could not get much of a stat spread here, guys. And I'm probably not going to edit this out of the video because I just want to make it as realistic as a reaction for you as it can be. So no stat spread yet. Shame. So Duma, Roy's our boy, Alm, Mila, Mira, Hel, Leandra, Niffle, Charlotte, Nyx, and Uller. That pretty much is our legendary banner for the month of October then. So as you can see, they usually do this where blue tends to be more like the new legendary or the new mythic tends to be sharing with stuff that's more desirable, and that's definitely the case here with Uller and Niffle being more recent units, of course. Uller being the after using her, I did end up getting her. I didn't summon for her, but I did end up getting her, and she is pretty like middle tiering mediocre. So in terms of like, I don't have a light legendary to a mythic to merge, and you want to score better in AR, like if you never ended up merging Air or Peony or Mila or Freya or all of those before her, then yeah, she's gonna be okay to merge up. But generally speaking, she's not like a must-have pickup by any means. And even for unlocking the 6th slot, I've had a few games where she couldn't be protected and got sniped. So that 6 units sometimes just not always helpful. I'd say that most of the time it is, but sometimes it's not, and you'll lose a game because of it. Whereas I'm sure Dogger, for example, actually is more resilient to being able to take hits. Anyways, Niffle is good. She can act as an offense support with 30% damage reduction and movement, cab movement to help do things, nice things. She also can have access to Trace, which is nice. And of course, we do have Faye, which comes with the new Distant Counter, Dragon's Ire, and Menace, so all decent fodder skills. However, that doesn't mean that blue is necessarily worth summoning, and for that matter, for this case, like any of these colors are going to be your own barracks take. I don't feel like this legendary banner by any means is really gonna, even for new players, gonna like stand out as I need to summon for anything here. Just off my own first impression, of course, but I'm gonna put up the should you pull polls and see what the community thinks. But generally speaking, nothing here out of all colors is going to be like eye-popping, and you got to consider your own barracks and your own merge projects for where you stand on this sort of thing. Even blue being the most shiny of new toys doesn't really matter, because you got to be essentially not caring for AR, and now you just start AR where you get some value out of Uller and Niffle. And then for Faye, like if you haven't merged up an Earth Legendary, then Faye is probably okay, but she's not necessarily the best either. I'd still put Claude is like going to be better than her. Regardless of what her stats spread ends up being, Claude is going to be better. Tiki could very well rise from the ashes, so to speak, based on her weapon refine. Her skill remix is already looking pretty good, so there's going to be some hard competition. Even Alm and Julia are pretty strong in Earth Season, whereas Faye might just end up somewhere in the middle, even if she scores pretty well. Finally, with the greens, we got Triandra, Hel, and Charlotte, which is nice for AR defense if you just need to get like one-offs. But again, still, I've been managing without Triandra, for example. It'd be nice to have her, but generally speaking, still not worth spending hundreds of orbs for. Red, we got Roy, who's literally the worst fire legendary right now, so he needs an upgrade pretty badly. Nyx is whatever, and Mira is nice again for defense if you need that one-off. Finally, Mila, Duma, and Alm. Alm is still good, actually. So is Duma, and so is Mila. They're probably still very good in their respective roles, but they are too much like in different roles of the game. So you got like Alm in Arena, more outdated too, because considering his scoring is low. Mila, who's AR offense based, and Duma, who's AR defense based. So it doesn't really have a focus point as some of the other stuff does. that pretty much covers my thoughts on this legendary banner, guys. So no spark, so it's more of a gamble, and you got to consider your own scenario. I would honestly just wait until next month, where there's going to be some nicer things like legendary Sigurd, Plumeria, got Corrin, Brammy, and Micaiah coming back. Forget Brammy, but like Corrin and Micaiah, pretty good. I think we have also Dimitri and Not, and finally Dogger with no one else being sharing yet. That just seems like a better banner in general. Plus, it's closer to the new book with new stuff probably coming. So if you were me, or just in general, you don't really know what to do, I'd say skip and wait for the next month because that just looks better. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching as always. Smash the like button, sub if you haven't already. Consider the Patreon description below. Best way to support this content and what I do for the efforts that I put in for you guys. And finally, YouTube poll right after this video in the community tab on my channel. Go vote up and let me know your thoughts. You might be in the next video. Love you all. Peace.
It's over.